Your body sends you signals constantly: a sudden yawn, a craving for ice, a twitch in your eyelid, a ringing in dead silence, cold fingers in a warm room. Most people wave these off as nothing, random noise, not worth a second thought, but each one of these has a real, scientifically documented cause. And most of them have nothing to do with what you'd assume. Start with yawning. The common assumption: you yawn because you're tired, or because you need more oxygen. Neither is quite right. Researchers led by Andrew Gallup have spent years building evidence for a different explanation entirely. Yawning cools your brain. Your brain runs hottest in a very narrow temperature range, and yawning appears to be a built-in radiator. A deep yawn draws in cool air, increases blood flow to the face, and helps bring an overheating brain back down to its ideal operating temperature. That's also why yawning is contagious, and why you're more likely to yawn watching someone else do it, in a room that's warm rather than freezing. And in Gallup's own research, excessive yawning has been linked to real thermoregulatory problems, from multiple sclerosis to migraines. Second, an intense craving for ice. Not water, not a cold drink. Specifically, the crunch of chewing ice. Doctors have a name for this: pagophagia, a specific form of a broader condition called pica, and it's one of the more reliable physical signs of iron deficiency anemia. Here's the strange part. Ice itself contains almost no iron at all, so chewing it isn't replenishing anything directly. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania tested what was actually happening and found something unexpected. In their study, chewing ice measurably improved reaction time and alertness, but only in people who were anemic. Their theory: the cold sensation increases blood flow to the brain, temporarily counteracting some of the mental fog that comes with low iron. The craving isn't random. It might be your body's own crude fix for a very specific, measurable deficiency. Third, a sudden twitch, usually in an eyelid, a calf, or a thumb. These are called fasciculations. Small, involuntary contractions of a single muscle fiber bundle. Up to 70% of people experience them at some point. The most common triggers, according to the medical literature, are almost embarrassingly mundane: too much caffeine, too little sleep, stress, and mild deficiencies in magnesium or calcium. In the vast majority of cases, they're medically meaningless, just an overexcited nerve firing slightly out of rhythm, which is also why they tend to show up specifically when you're finally sitting still. Not because something is wrong, but because it's the first quiet moment your nervous system has had to actually be noticed. Fourth, a faint ringing the moment a room goes completely silent. In 2008, Brazilian researchers tested this directly on people with completely normal hearing and no diagnosed tinnitus. They placed 66 participants in a quiet room and asked them to focus closely on their own hearing. 68% of them reported a faint ringing or phantom sound, despite there being no external noise at all. A separate group, asked to focus on a visual task instead, in the same silent room, reported it far less often. The likely explanation: your auditory system doesn't have an off setting. In true silence, it turns its sensitivity up and starts picking up its own faint internal activity. That ringing isn't a malfunction. It's what a working auditory system sounds like once you finally give it nothing else to listen to. Fifth, hands and feet that stay cold, even in a perfectly warm room. The mechanism here is called vasoconstriction, and it's controlled by your sympathetic nervous system, the same system responsible for fight or flight. When your body senses any kind of stress, cold, or physiological strain, it narrows the blood vessels in your extremities on purpose. Redirect warm blood away from your fingers and toes, and protect your core and the organs that actually need it most. In extreme cases like hypothermia, blood flow to the extremities can drop by nearly 90%. But the same system can quietly activate at a much smaller scale, from ordinary daily stress or, again, from iron deficiency, which can impair the body's ability to regulate this process properly. Cold hands in a warm room are often your nervous system, running a small-scale version of an ancient survival protocol for a threat that was never really there. None of these 5 signals are dramatic: a yawn, an ice craving, a twitch, a ring in silence. Cold fingertips, easy to ignore, easy to explain away as nothing. But underneath every single one is a real, working system, quietly regulating temperature, monitoring nutrients, protecting your core, keeping watch, even when there's nothing to watch for. You don't notice most of what your body does correctly. You only notice the small, strange signals it sends out along the way. Which one of these 5 have you been ignoring?